Early life and family background, 1952. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was born on October 7, 1952, in Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, Russia. His father, Vladimir Spiridonovich Putin, was a conscript in the Soviet Navy, serving in the submarine fleet in the early 1930s, later working at a factory. His mother, Maria Ivanovna Putina, was a factory worker. Putin's family lived in a communal apartment, which was common in Soviet Russia, reflecting a modest upbringing that shaped his early experiences and worldview. Education and early interests, 1960 to 1975. Putin attended school number 193, a local grammar school, and later studied at Leningrad State University, LSU, graduating in 1975 with a degree in law. At LSU, he was mentored by Anatoly Sobchak, who later became an influential political figure in his career. Putin's early interests included sports, particularly judo and sambo, where he achieved considerable success, earning a black belt in judo. These interests not only kept him disciplined but also played a role in his later public persona as a strong and formidable leader. KGB career and service in Dresden, 1975 to 1990. After graduating, Putin joined the KGB, the Soviet Union security agency. He received his training at the 401st KGB school in Okhta, Leningrad. By 1985, he was stationed in Dresden, East Germany, as a foreign intelligence officer. During his time in Dresden, Putin worked undercover, gathering intelligence on NATO and other Western entities. His experiences in East Germany provided him with a deep understanding of Western political and economic systems and contributed to his pragmatic approach to international relations. Return to Leningrad and entry into politics, 1990 to 1996. After the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, Putin returned to Leningrad. In 1990, he began working at Leningrad State University as an assistant to his former mentor, Anatoly Sobchak, who was then the chairman of the Leningrad City Council. When Sobchak became the mayor of Leningrad, later St. Petersburg, Putin was appointed as an advisor on international affairs and later as the head of the Committee for External Relations. His role involved promoting foreign investment and establishing international ties, marking his entry into the political sphere. Moving to Moscow and joining the presidential administration, 1996 to 1999. In 1996, after Sobchak lost his re-election bid, Putin moved to Moscow. He joined the administration of President Boris Yeltsin, initially working in the Kremlin's property management department. His competence quickly earned him a series of promotions. By 1998, Putin was appointed as the head of the Federal Security Service, FSB, the successor to the KGB, and later served as the Secretary of the Security Council of Russia. Appointment as Prime Minister, 1999. On August 9, 1999, Boris Yeltsin appointed Vladimir Putin as Prime Minister of Russia. This was a surprising move for many, as Putin was relatively unknown in the political landscape. However, his appointment came at a time of significant political instability and economic turmoil in Russia. His tough stance on the Second Chechen War and his promise to restore order and stability resonated with many Russians. Acting President of Russia, 1999 to 2000. On December 31, 1999, Boris Yeltsin unexpectedly resigned, making Vladimir Putin the acting president of Russia. Yeltsin's resignation was part of a plan to ensure a smooth transition of power to Putin, whom he trusted to maintain stability and continue his policies. As acting president, Putin quickly moved to consolidate his power, implementing measures to strengthen the central government and curb the influence of oligarchs. First presidential term, 2000 to 2004. Putin won the presidential election on March 26, 2000, securing 53% of the vote. His first term was marked by efforts to centralize power, restore economic stability, and reassert Russia's influence on the global stage. Key policies included tax reforms, a flat income tax rate, and the establishment of federal districts to streamline governance. Putin also focused on curbing the power of the oligarchs who had gained significant influence during the Yeltsin era. Second presidential term, 2004 to 2008. Re-elected in 2004 with 71% of the vote, Putin's second term saw continued economic growth, driven by rising oil prices and economic reforms. He further centralized power, reducing the autonomy of regional governors and enhancing the Kremlin's control over the media. However, his tenure was also marked by criticisms of increasing authoritarianism and human rights abuses. Internationally, Putin sought to strengthen Russia's position, opposing NATO expansion and engaging in strategic partnerships, particularly with China. The 2008 Medvedev-Putin tandemocracy. Constitutionally barred from seeking a third consecutive term, Putin endorsed Dmitry Medvedev as his successor. Medvedev won the 2008 presidential election, and Putin became prime minister. This period, often referred to as the tandemocracy, saw Medvedev and Putin sharing power, with Putin remaining the dominant figure. The tandem worked to modernize Russia's economy and infrastructure, although critics argue that real power remained firmly in Putin's hands. Return to the presidency, 2012. In 2012, Putin returned to the presidency after winning the election with 63.6% of the vote. His return was met with significant protests, particularly in Moscow, where allegations of electoral fraud sparked mass demonstrations. Putin's third term focused on asserting Russia's global influence, most notably through the annexation of Crimea in 2014. This move, following a controversial referendum, led to international sanctions and a deterioration in relations with the West. Annexation of Crimea and the Ukraine conflict, 2014. The annexation of Crimea marked a significant turning point in Putin's presidency. It was widely condemned by the international community and led to economic sanctions from the United States and the European Union. The conflict in eastern Ukraine, where pro-Russian separatists declared independence, further strained relations. Putin's actions were seen as a reassertion of Russian power and a response to Western influence in Eastern Europe. Military interventions in Syria, 2015. In 2015, Putin authorized a military intervention in Syria to support President Bashar al-Assad's government. The intervention was aimed at combating terrorist groups, including ISIS, and preserving the Assad regime, a key ally of Russia in the Middle East. The move bolstered Russia's influence in the region and demonstrated its willingness to use military power to achieve geopolitical objectives. The intervention also highlighted Russia's advanced military capabilities and its role as a major player in international affairs. Domestic policies and economic challenges, 2012 to 2018. Domestically, Putin's third term was marked by efforts to stabilize the economy amid Western sanctions and declining oil prices. He implemented policies to promote self-sufficiency, reduce dependency on imports, and support domestic industries. Despite these efforts, Russia faced significant economic challenges, including inflation and a recession. Putin's administration also continued to face criticism for human rights abuses, restrictions on press freedom, and the suppression of political opposition. Fourth presidential term, 2018-present. Putin won a fourth term in 2018 with over 76% of the vote, amidst allegations of election irregularities. His current term has focused on constitutional reforms, announced in January 2020, aimed at redistributing power within the government. These reforms included changes to the State Duma and the creation of the State Council, potentially allowing Putin to retain influence beyond his presidency. The COVID-19 pandemic presented additional challenges, with the government's response facing scrutiny both domestically and internationally. Constitutional amendments and potential extended rule, 2020. In 2020, Putin proposed a series of constitutional amendments, which were approved by a nationwide vote. Among the changes was a reset of presidential term limits, allowing him to potentially remain in power until 2036. These amendments also emphasized Russian sovereignty over international law and increased the powers of the State Duma and the State Council. Critics viewed these changes as a means for Putin to maintain his grip on power, while supporters argued they were necessary for political stability. Handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, 2020 to 2021. Russia's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic was a significant challenge for Putin's administration. The government implemented lockdown measures, developed and promoted the Sputnik V vaccine, and faced the economic repercussions of the global crisis. The pandemic highlighted the strengths and weaknesses of Russia's healthcare system and tested the government's ability to manage a public health crisis. Despite initial skepticism, Sputnik V became a symbol of national pride and a tool of soft power in international vaccine diplomacy. Navalny poisoning and increased opposition, 2020. The poisoning of opposition leader Alexei Navalny in August 2020 brought renewed attention to the state of political dissent in Russia. Navalny, a prominent critic of Putin, survived the poisoning and accused the Russian government of being behind the attack. His subsequent arrest upon returning to Russia in January 2021 led to widespread protests and international condemnation. The incident underscored the growing tensions between the Kremlin and opposition forces, as well as the ongoing challenges to Putin's authority. Russia's role in global cybersecurity concerns. Throughout his presidency, Putin has been associated with Russia's involvement in cyber operations and information warfare. Allegations of Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election, cyber attacks on various countries, and efforts to influence global public opinion through social media have been significant aspects of his international strategy. These activities have led to increasing tensions with Western nations and raised questions about the future of global cybersecurity and international relations. Legacy and future prospects. Vladimir Putin's legacy is complex and multifaceted. He has been credited with restoring stability and economic growth to Russia after the turbulent 1990s, reasserting Russian influence on the global stage, and maintaining high approval ratings among many Russians. However, his tenure has also been marked by authoritarianism, human rights abuses, and strained relations with the West. As he continues to lead Russia, the future prospects of his presidency will depend on his ability to navigate domestic challenges, international pressures, and the evolving political landscape.